You are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker podcast.
Welcome back, family, to the Storm Tracker podcast. I'm Marcus Benjamin, representing for CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals.com network. Make sure you subscribe to CanesCounty.com for free. Use the promo code Miami30. Today, I've got Sam Spiegelman joining me today, Rivals.com national recruiting analyst, to talk a little Miami recruiting. Thanks for joining me today, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Marcus.
No problem. Big week for Miami. A lot of players have Miami in their top schools list. So myself and all Hurricanes Nation are pretty much on pins and needles to really kind of see who is going to commit to the Miami Hurricanes this week. Miami's done a really great job within the past couple of weeks, gaining commitments from several different players, including Drake Stubbs and Chris Ewald, Max Buchanan, just to name a few. But Miami's in contention for some big name guys, including DJ Pickett, 5-star. Today, he is making his announcement. Jarquez Carter tomorrow making his announcement. And we have Jabari Antoine on July 20th, as well as Cortez Smith. So many guys. Miami is in contention here. And Miami currently with the 8th ranked class. But if you had to put some money on it, Sam, which one of these guys would you say would commit to Miami this week?
You know, I think if we were recording this this time last week, Marcus, DJ Pickett would definitely be at the forefront there. Obviously he's deciding today, and even though it's a 3-hat on the table sort of deal, this has been a 2-team race between Oregon and Miami. Right now, I feel like Oregon is in position to get his commitment. Obviously, there's still a couple hours left in this. So if I was to guess Miami gets any of these guys, right now I'm leaning toward Jabari Antoine, same position as DJ Pickett, and kind of, assuming that if and when he falls to Oregon, Miami's only going to go even more all in on Jabari Antoine, a top 100 DB from Louisiana. Jabari's been to Louisiana. He's from Louisiana. He's been to Miami a handful of times since January, including an OV in June. As he gets ready to announce his decision this weekend, I like where Miami is currently positioned, though we'll touch on it a little bit. This race is also not over with the home team LSU trying to get Jabari Antoine back on board before Saturday.
Yeah, I think my bet would go with the same player, Jabari Antoine, at this point. Miami seemed to be the leader for DJ Pickett for a while, but the past couple of weeks, it's been all Oregon here. So I agree with you for now, but Jabari Antoine is an interesting prospect here. And they're both kind of interesting in itself, because I believe both could probably play corner or safety here. And when I last spoke to DJ Pickett, he was pretty adamant about playing corner, somewhat surprisingly, because with his versatility, you would think, okay, maybe he could play safety, because it's just, you can kind of move the safety around a little bit more than a corner. So with him thinking about corner, and Jabari also maybe thinking about corner or safety, which player do you think is, I guess, the best fit for the Hurricanes? Given, I guess, the players that they do have. They have Chris Ewald committed to the class. They've got Timothy Merritt, as well as Drake Stubbs, who I mentioned earlier. Who do you think is the best fit for Miami, or who do you think would benefit the Hurricanes more committing to Miami? I guess is maybe a better way to say it.
Yeah, I think, based on rankings alone and projections, it's hard not to like DJ Pickett. Like you mentioned, he's getting recruited at cornerback. He's getting recruited at safety. He's 6'3", 180 pounds. He's built in a lab. If DB coaches around the country were putting together a potential first-round pick at the cornerback position, you can't look at DJ Pickett and find someone more built for that. He's long, he's rangy, he can press. We've seen him playing safety. We've seen him playing receiver, make a ton of highlights. I love the overall offensive defensive background when you're talking about a defensive back being able to turn and run with his length, with his anticipation. You already have Hilton Stubbs, Chris Ewald, those are some of the best DBs in the country. And Hilton Stubbs, we just saw a month ago in Jacksonville, might be the best safety in the country, Marcus. So if you're Miami, DJ Pickett at cornerback seems like a perfect match. But then you look at Jabari Antoine. Jabari Antoine plays cornerback. He plays safety already at New Iberia Westgate High School. He also plays quarterback and receiver for his high school club. So it's got a lot of the same traits that you like about DJ. You can also like about Jabari. Jabari isn't as big. I think there's only there's only probably a few players in the world as big as DJ Pickett that play corner. But Jabari Antoine, just north of 6'1", about 185 pounds, coming off of an injury as a junior, but has had a really strong offseason getting back into form. That same explosiveness, innate ball skills, anticipation, being able to read and react, playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. And again, the ability to kind of that translates to the secondary. You love that, whether you think that Jabari projects as a safety, as a corner. I think he can do both. He's been cross-training at both. And has not yet specialized in any one of these positions, which almost opens the door for him to continue to progress if and when he does finally pick a spot in the next level.
Absolutely. Let's get back to Jabari Antoine. I mean, this seemed like it was pretty much a slam dunk for Miami, going into this week. But, as you know, more than anybody, recruiting is a fluid situation. It can change by, the hour. It will be interesting to see what happens within the next few hours, what we'll both learn about DJ Pickett. But what have you learned lately about Jabari Antoine's recruitment and Miami's chances?
Yeah, if y'all been following along on Rivals.com, Marcus and we've been talking privately about this. It feels like Miami has been the team trending with Jabari for a couple of weeks now since his official visits. He took OVs to Miami and Florida State in June. That was his first visit to Tallahassee. Coach Pat Surtain, a Louisiana guy, is trying hard to get Florida State in this race. But as I mentioned earlier, he's been to Miami quite a few times. Including that OV, which is a real eye-opener for him. I think Chivas Jackson is doing a really good job with Jabari. I think that youthful connection is really vibrant in this recruitment. And then LSU, he has gotten him on campus. He's obviously been committed to LSU. He committed back in January over Texas at the time, reopened his recruitment after his official visits to get I was told to just get a clearer picture of what he wanted to do and kind of not be committed when he tried to finalize his plans. But in the past week or so, as I mentioned, Miami might have been trending. LSU is still very much alive in this race, according to people very close to this recruitment. There will be more on that in Rivals.com later today once I can get to the computer. But, the LSU is just picked up their first DB commitment last weekend, and they're trying to lock down the state. That's kind of LSU's motto under Brian Kelly and Frank Wilson and company. And Jabari Antoine has been to LSU as much as any campus in the country, besides Texas and besides Miami. I think, kind of like you said, anything can happen in recruiting. Things change very quickly. I think Miami is still sitting in a good spot, but the team to watch going into Saturday might be LSU as they try to close the gap quickly.
That'll be interesting. I think Miami Hurricanes fans are kind of hoping and maybe betting on Jabari Antoine committing to the U, throwing up the U. But we'll see, and that's why recruiting is so exciting, and that's why they pay you the big bucks, Sam.
I wish.
Sam, if you could just kind of tell the audience just a little bit about your background, what you cover for Rivals, and what kind of brought you back to the network.
Oh, yeah. I'm happy to field the question about myself instead of these recruitments. I cover the Southeast for Rivals. I'm based in Texas. I spent a lot of time covering the states of Texas and Louisiana, and obviously different parts of the Southeast like Miami and Mississippi, which way different than Miami, and Alabama, and Now I'm getting the whole full scope of the Southeast at Rivals. I came back at the end of May after a couple of years at a competitor. What brought me back is I think that the people here, I think they're more like-minded. I think it's a great network with some really great people, some great talent within this network. And they give me the opportunity to not only cover, this is an incredible job, and I've been super fortunate to make my way into it back in 2018 when I reached the national level, but the ability to empower their workers to kind of do what they feel is best to cover this field, which is, like you said, crazy and ever changing. And I appreciate the confidence that the people at Rivals and Yahoo Sports have in me to let me live a very crazy life, on football fields and in camps and in changing, taking 4 showers a day to run out to different practices and camps and whatnot. And they allow me to do all that. And I couldn't thank them anymore. I'm happy to be back.
That's funny. I kind of lived the same life, and I thought about it the other day, like, wow, I'm taking like a bunch of showers during the day. That's pretty cool. Glad to have you part of the team. You're doing an absolutely fantastic job, and really appreciate the info that you provide, and looking forward to more of the great articles and intel you provide for Rivals and for CanesCounty.com. Wanted to talk about some more recruits, though, and Miami's chances of really landing them after DJ Pickett makes his announcement today. Tomorrow, Jarquez Carter makes his decision. Now, he was a guy I spoke to right after his official visit, really was high on the Hurricanes, and really conveyed that it was a very relaxed environment in Coral Gables, and it wasn't a lot of pressure, I guess, that he's feeling from other schools. Miami seemed to be in a good place, but seems like the Buckeyes have kind of taken over here. What say you on his recruitment and just what you know or what you think will happen with Miami and Jarquez Carter?
Yeah, Jarquez Carter was our D-line MVP at the Rivals 5-star last month. Got a great look at him, and you can see why some of these schools across the country are drooling over someone like him and on the interior part of their defensive line. But the interesting part of Floyd's recruitment that's kind of caught my eye is it seems to be momentum has been easily shifted pretty quickly, and as he navigated these official visits over June, you had buzz around USC at one point, you had buzz around Miami at one point, and then there was the Ohio State buzz. And leading into tomorrow's announcement, I still like where the Buckeyes sit. To me, I hate to say this, Ohio State is putting together an elite class on the defensive front. That's what Larry Johnson does time and time again. But in terms from the big picture, and I am being selfish because I'm thinking about, how our jobs work, there's a whole wave of summer commitments, and then there's a whole wave of final commitments. Floyd, the way his recruitment has kind of fluctuated over the summer, I think it leaves it open to interpretation for how his different seasons will go, how his senior season will go. It seems like Ohio State got momentum at the right time. Obviously, they are full-fledged with elite defensive coaches on that side of the ball. They're a program that's going to compete for national championships and Big Ten championships and have a history of developing and producing first-round picks at his position. But with that being said, I get a little bit weary when it comes to someone who changes their mind a pretty decent amount of times. So between the USC buzz and the Miami buzz, I like where Ohio State stands. I do think it's a recruitment that we're going to be paying attention to in September and October to see where Floyd is visiting and see who's still in his ear.
You were saying Floyd, but you meant Jarquez Carter, though, right?
Oh my gosh, my head is already spinning. Yes, I am. I think that yes. Oh wow. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I was thinking about my next on my list of recruits that we were speaking about.
Yeah, we're watching highlights of Jarquez Carter now, but I believe you were also thinking about Floyd Buchard because this is a guy who also is very interested in Miami. It feels like it's a three-team race with Oklahoma, USC, and Miami for Floyd Buchard. Since you mentioned him, of course, I was going to ask about him as well. What is your thoughts on him, and do you think he eventually throws up the U on Saturday?
Yeah, well, this was the recruitment that I meant to be addressing when I'm talking about Jarquez Carter. Jarquez, I do feel good about Ohio State with Jarquez. With Floyd, that recruitment that I can't seem to get a pulse on. Floyd, like I said, there's been buzz around USC, there's been buzz around Miami, and then there's been buzz around Oklahoma. It seems like each official visit has kind of moved the needle in a big way with Floyd, who had a really big spring and saw his recruitment just take off after his junior season. I think it started to kind of rush, and he saw all these Power Four offers kind of rolling in. So these official visits were critical for him to try to find some separation amongst those top teams. In early June, there was a lot of buzz that he might be committing to the Trojans. We know that Miami isn't going to try to let him go anywhere. And we know that Oklahoma has had a strong track record under Brent Venables and Miguel Chavis and Todd Bates at landing beef on the defensive line, especially as they go into the SEC and want to improve that portion of their roster. So heading into his decision, I think this is the recruitment I really meant to speak on. This could go in a lot of different directions at the end of this week. And then beyond that, I still think no matter where he chooses, I think it's going to leave the door open just a little bit to see where he visits again in the fall and who is still in his ear.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got that feeling too, that this could go down all the way to signing day, and he could be on flip watch as soon as he commits on Saturday. I can't quite get a beat on him. I've talked to him several times this offseason, being that he is, local guy at Miami Central. Now he kind of blew up at the UA camp, really kind of made a name for himself, winning the DL MVP there. And since then, he's visited Miami several times. He's developed a strong bond with Coach Joe down in Miami, defensive line coach. They've really bonded. So him staying home because he's only been here like a few months is definitely a possibility. But I take it this is a guy who is really kind of enjoying this process and really trying to feel out what could be the best scenario, and if the best scenario evolves or kind of transforms into something better for him, then he may, rightly so, jump on that opportunity. So definitely an interesting recruitment to watch. I don't even think he quite knows where he's going just yet, and we are 3 days away here from that commitment. One last guy I did want to ask about is Cortez Smith, outstanding guy that I love. I think he's a really outstanding talent out of Georgia. Offensive lineman, could play guard or center, I think, on the college level. He's expressed that Miami wants him to play center. Miami added SJ Olafatuli recently.
Nicely done.
Yeah, definitely a great get for the Hurricanes there to pull him from Bishop Gorman, West Coast. Second, if he indeed signs with Miami, it'd be the second year in a row that they pulled a Bishop Gorman player with getting Elijah Lofton last cycle. But Cortez Smith, I talked to him several times this offseason as well, 3 times actually, and, glowing, remarks about Miami every time. But is this a case where he stays just closer to home to Georgia, or will he throw up the U on Saturday?
Yeah, he's down to 4 schools heading into Saturday's announcement. But in talking to him and talking to people close to his recruitment, this is down to Miami and Georgia heading into Saturday. Like you said, Marcus, he said that Miami views him as the center of the future in Coral Gables, and I think that's not a fact that's been lost on him. I think that obviously Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal, obviously they're offensive line guys, and I think that that's something that speaks volumes to someone like Cortez Smith, who I'm sure you've picked up from talking to him. He's a super cerebral kid, put a huge emphasis on development, and not only football, but development in his position, whether that is at center or interior offensive line, but also academics. He's someone who's taking the full spectrum into consideration, not just picking someone based on their team or proximity to home or whatnot. I do think that for a chunk of the summer, I think that Miami may have been the team to beat. I think that's the official visit that really opened his eyes early on. But right now, my future cast is still on Georgia. I think that last official visit to Georgia kind of laid the groundwork for the Dogs to keep Cortez Smith home. They are taking no prisoners when it comes to offensive and defensive linemen from the Peach State in this 2025 cycle. The guys who they want, they are getting on board. And I think that with Cortez Smith, I think, again, down to Miami and Georgia, I could see it going either way. Right now, I like Georgia, but I think that Miami visit gave him plenty to chew on going into Saturday.
Yeah, this podcast probably not the best one for Miami Hurricanes fans to listen to right now, because if you're listening, you're like, okay, well, are we going to miss out on all of these guys? So I hope that is not the case for Canes fans. But Miami is one of those schools that you just can't count out at any time or any point. That they're relentless in their recruiting. And even if they strike out on all of these guys, I truly believe that they will continue to push for guys like Jarquez Carter. They will continue to push for guys like DJ Pickett. So, and Jabari Antoine as well. So, I mean, he's already flipped, decommitted once from LSU. I don't know, how great of a chance as Miami would have if he did commit to LSU. Maybe Florida State, I think maybe is a better chance for Miami to flip him from FSU. But
well, here's what I could say. Obviously, we haven't been delivering all this positive news that Miami fans are craving for. But with DJ Pickett, first of all, they're still in this race heading into Wednesday's announcement. And like you said, I don't think that they're going anywhere. The biggest X factor I've heard in this, from talking to sources around DJ the past couple of weeks and months, I think if Miami has a really strong season this year, I think that could certainly change the tide in this. I think Oregon has an edge because he wants to play for a winner. And obviously we saw what Oregon's been doing under Dan Lanning, and they seem like a team poised to continue to take another step forward toward competing for Big Ten championships and playoff spots. And I think if Miami has a season like that, that'll be really important for their chances in the fall with DJ Pickett, because like I said, there's July commitments and then there's commitments that come in the fall. And the ones in the fall generally stick because they're closer to signing day. And it's just, everyone wants to have a decision made before their senior seasons. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily done and tucked away. With Jabari, I still think Miami is the team that's in the best position to land his commitment. Of course, I do think Florida State has kind of fallen off a little bit. The concern is LSU. And like you said, with those defensive linemen, especially guys that are playing close to Miami during their season, if Miami misses on a few guys, if those guys have sensational senior seasons, you have to know that Coach Cristobal is not going to be shying away about trying to change their mind. He's done it quite a few times in the past. And, even if you can't get these guys on board before their summer decisions, like you said, it opens the door for them to continue to chip away. If they're close to home, to get them on campus for a big game in September or October and change their mind a little bit before it's crunch time.
Absolutely. Miami is banking on a big season just because with all of the transfers they brought in, Cam Ward obviously being the biggest one of all, and just they're scheduled to be very favorable this season. Miami feels really good about having a good season, a decent season, maybe a 10-win season. I've believed that it's definitely possible for the Hurricanes if they indeed achieve that feat, Sam. Do you think that they kind of jump into possibly a top 5 signing class by when it's all said and done in December? Well, it's really not all said and done until like February, but it feels like it's all said and done in December. But what do you think of their chances of making a top 5 class if their season is indeed successful?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the important dominoes that needs to fall. If they have that great season, then I think that we're talking about them with either DJ Pickett on board or in a very good spot to flip him. You're talking about guys like Elijah Griffin, who we know they are right in the middle of with Georgia, with Florida State, with South Carolina for the number 1 defensive tackle on their board. I think those are the sort of prizes that are still out there. Right now, the way that Alabama and Georgia, Ohio State, and now Oregon, which seems poised to potentially add DJ Pickett or Jonah Williams and or Trey McNutt at some point before the end of this month. I think those are 4 teams that are, whatever order they fall in, are ingrained to be in the top 5. It's almost an embarrassment that I'm a national analyst and I am so bad at trying to project these rankings for the teams. At the end of the day, I don't understand. It's very difficult. I'm not good at math. That's why I got into this field to begin with. But based on the guys that they get, they have already brought in on board. Those guys seem destined to be in the top 5 no matter what. So I think that the chances of them being a top 5 class might be a little bit slimmer. If they pull off a flip or win out a really tough battle for Elijah Griffin, I think they'll bring them very close. But I say this every single time I'm asked this question. I don't care where your class is ranked. If it's in the top 10 or the top 15, I think it's moot because it's about your own evaluations. These are Miami's evaluations versus the rivals' evaluations. Right. That's not to take anything away from the hard work that our analysts do, but Miami and Coach Cristobal and the guys that he put together on offense and defense coordinators, assistant coaches, they are great evaluators of talent. If they land all the guys that they want, or at least a good portion of it, they're going to be pleased with a top 10 class of guys that they felt really good about. And I think that Coach Cristobal has a vision for this program. I think we're seeing it in the way that they recruit the offensive and defensive side of the balls, and to see some of the Hilton Stubbs and the Chris Ewalds that have fallen into their class in the past couple of weeks. They're right on point with putting together a class that they're going to be very proud of. And if you get a couple of flips and a couple of big dominoes along the way, you might not have a top 5 class, but a 6th or 7th with those kind of dudes in it, it's easy to sleep at night.
Yeah, I'll say. Absolutely. Great stuff from you, as always, Sam. Thank you for joining me on this edition of the Storm Tracker podcast. We'll see how this week plays out. Should be an exciting one for you, for all who are interested. And look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely, Marcus. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Once again, this is going to wrap it up for the Storm Tracker podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the website, canescounty.com, for free. Use the promo code Miami30. Also, subscribe to this podcast on all platforms. And also subscribe to this YouTube channel live from Canes County. Until the next episode.